Hi everyone, it's Matt with a YouTube video, my first ever, on BMYRT. I wanted to do a little update with all the news we've had in the last 24 hours. So today we got IDACEL acceptance and priority review, and I didn't think there was any risk of that, so I'm not surprised it's not up on that. Unfortunately, the reason why it's down is because yesterday, Samit, the CMO of Bristol Myers, said that inspections have not been scheduled in response to an analyst question on a conference call. Previously, they have never said that inspections weren't scheduled, just that they hadn't occurred. He also reiterated that they have breakthrough designation and that the PDUFA is in November. Last week, the CEO of Bristol Myers also reiterated that inspections hadn't occurred, but did not say they hadn't been scheduled. So where are we right now? The stock's selling off because there's 750 million shares outstanding, and this was the last event that you could sell and de-risk before it's either a zero or 25 cents if there's any litigation value, or $5 plus on lysocell approval. I think everyone's overweight it, and I don't think there's any incremental buyers, and that's why you are where you are right now. I'm not personally selling because I think it's extremely undervalued. I never actually did a expected value valuation on the podcast, but the way I look at it now is if you assume there's a 60% chance of lysocell being approved, I'm at 90%, but I'm doing 60% to do a haircut for inspection risk. And then if it gets approved, the read through to IDACEL is that they will also be able to inspect. So I use 85% on IDACEL in that scenario. You get to an expected value of over $4.50 versus the $2 it's trading at today. Of course, if it goes to zero, it doesn't matter what your expected value is, and you have to be prepared for it to go to zero. But what I really want to talk about is the FDA and about their incentives here. I talked about it on the podcast a little bit, but it's extremely important. You have two doors. One door is this gets to the PDUFA, and they didn't inspect or they can't inspect, whatever that means, and they delay it. And there is headline risk for the FDA that a breakthrough designation life-saving drug has been delayed because inspectors can't get on a plane to, or don't want to get on a plane to inspect in Seattle due to COVID risk. Mind you, there are millions of healthcare workers right now all over the country that are putting their lives at much greater risk for COVID risk than you would have on a plane or in a factory, a CAR T manufacturing plant in Seattle. I just think it's a really bad look for the FDA. I think this is the exact opposite of what they're trying to do, but just show that COVID is not hurting their ability to approve life-saving drugs on time. So that's my take. I think that when you get closer to this PDUFA date, if they still haven't inspected, they will figure it out. They'll either do a virtual inspection, they'll send a field officer and have experts on the phone, but when push comes to shove and the FDA has to make a decision, do we indefinitely delay this due to COVID, or do we sign off on it pending future inspection, I guess? Which one is at greater risk to the American people? Which one is at greater risk to the FDA and headline risk? And I just think it's a no-brainer that it's going to be that they sign off on it. Now, the big risk here is that maybe the FDA doesn't want to inspect because they're going to reject the drug. Why haven't they inspected yet? Why didn't they inspect in August? Why didn't they inspect in September? The best answer I got for that is we know from BMYRT that the FDA rejected that drug, and since they knew they were going to reject it, they did not inspect the plant. However, we're being told the exact opposite here. We're being told over and over by Bristol Myers that one, the review's going well. Companies lie all the time about that. But one, the review's going well. And two, the FDA has told them they need to inspect these plants. I can't come up with any reason why the FDA would be so adamant to Bristol Myers that they need to inspect plants if they've already come up with the conclusion that they're going to give a complete response letter in November. I'm guessing they did not tell BMYRT they needed to inspect the plants when 3 days before the BMYRT PDUFA, BMYRT was very confident in approval. If the FDA told them, we have to inspect your plants before this gets approved, 3 days prior, I don't think they would be thinking they were getting approved. So that alone tells me this is pending approval. The review's done, pending this inspection. The second thing I can come up with about why they haven't inspected yet and why we shouldn't be worried is, and I mentioned on the podcast, is Fennec. We know Fennec got inspected 30 days prior to the PDUFA. Clearly, the FDA is waiting until the absolute last minute to do this because they're trying to deal with the health risk of their employees. Of course, it makes not a lot of sense because Texas in a month from now is probably going to be more dangerous than Texas now. So if they were being rational, they should send somebody in now. I don't have a good answer for that. I just know where the incentives lie, and the incentives lie for them to inspect. So what happens next? I don't think Bristol-Myers is going to keep giving us updates every week that they don't have an inspection scheduled. They also don't have any events on their agenda. They have a conference call in November for their earnings, but I think we'll know well before then whether this is going to make the PDUFA date or not make the PDUFA date. We should find out, I would guess, by the third or fourth week in October if the FDA has decided they cannot inspect this facility in time for the November PDUFA date. The guidance from August says that the FDA will notify the sponsor if they plan on missing the PDUFA date. If we don't hear from the FDA, and from Bristol-Myers, because the FDA will notify Bristol-Myers, by the end of October, we can assume safely the drug's either getting rejected in November, either due to a poor inspection or for clinical reasons, nothing to do with the inspection, or the drug is on the path to approval in November. I can't see how we would have a delay outcome there, unless it's going to be really close, and maybe they would tell us a week or two in advance that they're going to get it done in the next couple weeks. What we've learned from calls with experts is that the PDUFA date is what matters for the FDA. It's not the end of the year calendar approvals. They want to get these drugs approved by the PDUFA date. By law, they have to get a certain amount of drugs approved or else they lose congressional funding, or they have to be called in front of Congress. They're nowhere near that happening, by the way. I think it's like 90% they have to get done, and I think they've had one PDUFA date they missed this year so far, or two out of hundreds. So that's not a risk, but it's just a bad look. So I think we sit and we wait, and one day we might get news that an inspection occurred and it goes up to 350 on an inspection just occurring. Otherwise, it's hard to see a lot of headline risk in the very near term, because I think if Bristol-Myers was going to disclose that the FDA has informed them either a CRL is coming or that they will not be able to inspect, they would have taken any of the last 3 times in the last 2 weeks to disclose that to us. So that's where I am. Hope you enjoyed my first video and like my dual screen situation in the back. And please feel free to leave comments. You can tweet at me, given the number 2, tweet, GIVEN, the number 2, tweet, TWEET. I have a locked account, so unfortunately I don't let in new followers for a variety of reasons, but I can see your questions and then I can answer them the next time I do one of these YouTube chats. All right, take care.